I'm Nora, a 34-year-old working housewife, was ruthlessly dismissed by her husband Elias and his mother Victoria. They coldly informed her that they were divorcing her because she couldn't have children, and they planned to take the house and car as well. Their harsh words and mocking smiles revealed their true natures as mother and son. Nora had always felt like an outsider in their family, used for their convenience. Despite her shock at their plans to replace her with a new spouse for Elias, Nora was determined not to repeat her mistakes. Facing them bravely, she remembered how their relationship started. She had met Elias at a company meeting 10 years earlier when he was making sales manager. Charmed by his demeanor, she quickly fell in love, and they married soon after, against her parents' advice. Her father, familiar with Elias's company's poor reputation, had warned her of potential troubles, but she didn't listen. Unfortunately, her father was right. Elias's company went bankrupt shortly after their wedding, and though he wanted Nora to quit her job, she went back to work to support them. Elias kept switching jobs, and Nora had to carry the financial burden. Despite all this, Nora now realized she needed to stand strong and move on with her life, starting by facing Elias and Victoria with newfound resolve. Nora thought they had found their perfect forever home when they bought a house, but that dream was short-lived when Elias's parents moved in. Life became difficult from then on. Her father-in-law kept to himself, so he wasn't much of a problem. However, her mother-in-law was constantly critical. She would complain about Nora's cleaning, claiming it triggered her allergies, and Nora would apologize and clean again. Initially, Elias's parents seemed quiet, but they soon showed their true colors, treating Nora more like a maid. After Elias's company failed, life became financially unstable, and Nora continued working to support them. Yet, her in-laws didn't see the importance of her job, dismissing it as a side gig. Victoria kept criticizing, saying Elias was working hard while Nora was neglecting her chores. Elias began to echo his mother's harsh words, accusing Nora of slacking off. He told her she needed to manage both her job and housework better. The kind and supportive Elias she once knew was gone, and he started treating her like a servant too. Things got even more challenging when her father-in-law's health deteriorated due to his unhealthy lifestyle. He collapsed and required constant care, which naturally fell on Nora to manage. Victoria left the caregiving responsibilities to Nora and did as she pleased. Nora managed with the help of aides and home care services. However, during a brief trip to the store, her father-in-law passed away. Victoria blamed Nora, saying it was her fault for not being there. Shaken by the experience and Victoria's accusations, Nora blamed herself and believed she had to make amends. She started following Victoria and Elias's orders without question. However, deep down, she began to question if this was the life she truly wanted. She had married Elias hoping for happiness, but she was far from happy. Caught up in the daily grind, she didn't have the energy to make changes. One day, after a long day at work, Nora walked past a small boutique and noticed a pair of shoes in the window that caught her eye. Nora had always noticed this little store but had never bought anything because her budget was tight. However, one day, a pair of shoes in the window caught her eye and she couldn't look away. Before she knew it, she had bought them using her savings, knowing she had to keep the purchase a secret from Elias and Victoria, who would disapprove of even a simple pair of socks. The shoes were pricey, and Nora knew there would be trouble if Elias and Victoria found out. So, she hid them deep in their box and tucked them away at the back of her closet. She thought about saving them for a special occasion, maybe even rekindling friendships from school that she had lost touch with. The thrill of buying something new for herself felt liberating, yet she knew the challenge of even wearing them outside would require getting permission from Elias and Victoria, which wouldn't be easy. A few days later, coming home tired from work, Nora opened her door to find Victoria trying to squeeze her foot into the new shoes. Nora exclaimed in surprise. And Victoria, caught off guard but quickly recovering, smirked and said she was trying on the shoes. She taunted Nora about daring to buy such fancy shoes, claiming they suited her better. Victoria's feet were too big for the shoes, and they didn't fit her. Frustrated, Victoria blamed the shoes and threw them on the floor, damaging them and knocking off some decorations. She yelled for Nora to throw away the trash. After Victoria stormed off, Nora carefully picked up the shoes. Although they were scuffed and some of the decorations were loose, she believed she could clean them up and perhaps even wear them again. Holding the damaged shoes close, she fought back tears and returned them to the closet to wait for Elias to come home. Nora knew she had to talk to him about Victoria's behavior, although she expected him to arrive home late, as usual. Nora was trying to compose herself when Elias walked in, looking tired. She cautiously began to tell him about Victoria trying on her shoes without asking. Elias responded dismissively, saying it wasn't a big deal since they were both women. Nora tried to explain further, but Elias interrupted, angrily questioning if she had bought the shoes with his money. Taken aback by his reaction, Nora started to defend herself, but Elias didn't let her speak and accused her of using his money without permission. He even questioned her right to complain about his mother wearing the shoes. Despite Elias's belief that they couldn't survive on his earnings alone, he seemed to have forgotten that it was actually Nora's income that was supporting them, especially since Victoria had moved in. Frustrated, Nora corrected him, saying she used her own savings for the shoes. Elias scoffed at her earnings, which made Nora snap back, accidentally louder than she intended, pointing out that he didn't earn much either. This angered Elias further, and he threw his bag at her. It missed her and hit the wall, but the violent act left Nora in shock and fear. Elias stormed out, slamming the door behind him, leaving Nora in tears. She had never talked back to him like this before, and his aggressive response scared her. Later, feeling unwell from the stress, Nora went to work but was pale and unsteady, prompting her colleagues to suggest she go home early. As she reached her front door, it suddenly opened, startling her. An unfamiliar woman looked Nora over, snorted dismissively, and walked away. Confused and shaken, Nora confronted Elias, who was at home due to his night shift job. When she demanded to know who the woman was, Elias hesitated, and before he could answer, Victoria interjected, revealing that the woman was Elias's new wife-to-be. Victoria bluntly told Nora that since she hadn't had children, Elias had found someone else who was younger and seemed more capable. She urged Nora to hurry up and get divorced. Nora was left stunned and hurt, not just by Elias's betrayal, but also by his and Victoria's boldness in bringing his new partner into their home. Nora listened in disbelief as Elias proudly told her about his new girlfriend, who was willing to wait for him to get a divorce. His confidence grew as he saw Nora's shock, and he callously declared his intentions to divorce her because she couldn't have children, planning to take their house and car too. Beside him, Victoria laughed maliciously, echoing Elias's sentiments that Nora was no longer part of the family and should return to her parents. For years, they had treated Nora like a servant, manipulating her for their convenience. Nora had tolerated a lot, but she never expected them to be so boldly selfish about pushing her aside for someone new. Disgusted with herself for not seeing their true colors earlier and regretting her decision to marry into this manipulative family, Nora found a sudden resolve. Facing Elias and Victoria squarely, she announced she would handle the situation. Their surprised expressions gave her a brief moment of satisfaction as she left for the town hall. It was fortunate she had come home early that day. Calm and determined, Nora filled out the divorce papers. Returning home, she handed the papers to Elias, who was lounging in the living room, taken aback by her decisiveness. Ignoring his confusion, Nora quickly packed her few belongings, not forgetting the hidden shoes she had recently bought, and urged Elias to complete his part of the paperwork. With a final check of the completed forms, she smiled at the bewildered pair and bid them farewell, leaving them speechless as she walked out. Nora stayed at a hotel near her office, relishing the rare solitude and freedom she hadn't experienced since before her marriage. She enjoyed her time alone, returning to her normal work routine the next day. Elias, unable to grasp the reality of their situation, bombarded her with calls, which she ignored until evening. When she finally answered, Elias was almost crying, accusing her of taking the car and ruining his plans for a drive with his new partner. His new girlfriend was apparently disappointed, and Elias was desperate. Nora, fed up with his selfishness and obliviousness, firmly corrected him. The car was hers, legally and rightfully. Elias's protestations were cut short as Nora firmly set the record straight, telling him he needed to face the consequences of his decisions and the reality of their separation. Her newfound strength and independence marked the start of a new chapter in her life, one where she would no longer be manipulated or undervalued. The car is officially under my name. I funded it, continuously paid the vehicle taxes, and managed all necessary inspections. You've merely been using it without permission. This was the first time I had ever confronted Elias directly, and it clearly took him by surprise. Despite his astonishment, he struggled to form a coherent argument, questioning the authenticity of my financial contributions. At that moment, frustration washed over me. I questioned why I ever married someone so clueless, and it was infuriating to realize that he assumed I handled the intricate paperwork and dipped into his finances without verification. I felt the urge to facepalm, wondering how I ended up with someone who barely acted like an adult. Have you even checked your accounts to see if those inspection fees and car taxes were deducted? I asked. Of course they weren't, because I had covered all those expenses. He seemed oblivious to the fact that I possess considerable wealth with a net worth of $42 million. I calmly explained to Elias that my father had inherited several properties from my grandfather and had a successful career in real estate management and stock investments. He passed some of these assets to me. It seems I inherited not only the properties but also my father's acumen for managing them, which allowed me to further increase my wealth. My side job? That's managing these assets. My father had advised me against disclosing my financial status to Elias before our marriage, a piece of advice I reluctantly followed, and it turned out to be wise. Following my father's guidance enabled me to exit my marriage swiftly. I'm forever grateful to him for that, and we reconciled shortly after the wedding. My mother, too, had her reservations, and although they might be saddened by the divorce, I believe they'll understand once I explain. I had to remind Elias of another startling fact. And by the way, the house you and Victoria are living in? That's also mine, and I'm planning to sell it. You'll need to move out soon. Elias was bewildered, unable to comprehend the reality. He thought the house was his, but I quickly corrected him. What are you talking about? I purchased the house and have been handling the mortgage payments alone. You never attended any meetings with the builder, the realtor, or the bank. Arguing further seemed futile at that point, so I chose to methodically dismantle his unfounded claims, setting the record straight once and for all. When we were building the house, Elias used his job as an excuse to delegate all the responsibilities to me. This allowed me to design the house exactly how I wanted. However, after our marriage soured, the house became a reservoir of unhappy memories, prompting my decision to sell it post-divorce. Despite my clear explanations, Elias was in denial, panicking and claiming the house as his own. Are the mortgage payments coming from your account every month? Check your bank statements, I urged him. If you were actually paying, your savings would have been depleted long ago. I had previously made it clear to Elias that both the house and the land were registered in my name, and that I was solely responsible for the mortgage. He seemed to understand at the time, but his agreement was just lip service. After years in the house, he had deluded himself into thinking it was a bizarre notion for an adult, yet not surprising given he also thought he owned my car. But I live here now. You can't just kick out your family and sell the house. That's not right, Elias protested. Stop frustrating me further, I responded, wary of his antics. I filed for divorce yesterday. We're practically strangers now. Isn't it odd for a stranger to live in a house that isn't theirs? You filed the divorce papers? He exclaimed, shocked. You brought another woman into my house, demanded a divorce, and now this surprises you? Did you forget what happened just yesterday? I methodically refuted each of Elias's ridiculous assertions. I'm tired of your nonsense. To me, you're just an irritating person residing in my property and making unreasonable demands. You don't earn much, yet you posture as if you support us single-handedly. Treat me as if I'm worthless and betray me. Who do you think you are? I declared, fed up with his behavior. I regret agreeing to everything you wanted, but what you've done is unforgivable. I will never forgive you for trying to harm me. After I firmly rejected him, Elias seemed to grasp the gravity of his situation, but then he dropped another bombshell. She's pregnant. My new partner is pregnant. If you evict us, it's not just me and my mom. My new partner and her unborn child will also suffer. This revelation stunned me momentarily, but then I collected myself and asked, "Do you realize what you're asking? You want your ex-wife to support your mistress and her unborn child? Isn't that incredibly selfish?" Elias's tone became pleading, "But you can't just leave a pregnant woman homeless, right?" It seemed he was trying to manipulate the situation using his affair partner's pregnancy. "I don't care if your partner is pregnant. Besides, there are other places you can live," I countered. "How can you say such shameless things after everything you've done? And are you even sure that child is yours?" Elias was silent for a moment, then burst out defensively. "Of course it's mine. How dare you suggest otherwise? The whole reason we're getting divorced is because you couldn't get pregnant." His words were hurtful, but they confirmed the end of any remnants of respect or connection we might have had left. The conversation had not just crossed a line, it had obliterated it. "I have no fertility issues," I made that clear with the final bombshell I had been holding back. After our marriage, I underwent a comprehensive medical checkup with a gynecologist. The tests confirmed I was ovulating normally and could conceive at any time. The doctor suggested the issue might lie with Elias. So I pressed him again. "Is that child really yours?" The woman Elias introduced as his new partner had a rather flashy appearance, which didn't instill much confidence in her fidelity. At my probing, Elias fell silent, possibly contemplating the same doubts. The woman who claimed to have feelings for him might well have been involved with someone else. His denial came frantically. "That's a lie! I couldn't be infertile, she loves me. That baby has to be mine," I suggested. "Why not confirm it with a DNA test after the baby is born? It would clear all your doubts." But Elias refused, his response filled with panic and denial. Exhausted by his outburst, I firmly stated, "Regardless, the car and the house are mine. You'll need to move out." "Look, Nora, stop asking me for help. Your new partner, who supposedly cares for you, should support you now, and so should your self-absorbed, demanding mother," I continued, making my stance crystal clear from now on. "What happens to you doesn't concern me." "Don't call me again. I find your voice incredibly irritating and unpleasant." With that, I hung up while Elias was still grappling for words, then immediately blocked his number. Not long after, I received a call from Victoria. She rambled on, but the gist was as expected. The child wasn't Elias's. His affair partner had been drawn to him, mistakenly thinking he led a stable life with a house and a car, not realizing that stability was my doing. When confronted, she unceremoniously left Elias and disappeared. "Please come back. We were wrong. We're really sorry," Victoria pleaded in a tone that sounded insincere, which only made me laugh. "Sorry? You, who treated me so poorly. That's laughable. Do you even grasp the meaning of the words Ari? Maybe you should look it up." Her true colors showed when she retorted, "How dare you speak to me like that?" It was clear she wasn't sorry at all. I replied coolly, "Get out of the house soon. I've got a buyer lined up." Victoria's pleas continued, but I was unmoved. "If you resist, I'll hire a lawyer. It's best you move out quickly." I hung up and blocked Victoria's number too. Considering the events, I thought about changing my phone for peace of mind. A new model had just been released, making it the perfect opportunity. As I left to treat myself to a nice meal, a smile spread across my face, feeling a sense of relief and finality. Later, the house sold without issue, and Elias and Victoria moved to a rundown apartment, which was all Elias's salary could afford now. It seems they're having a tough time making ends meet, and they've been asking relatives for help, but no one is willing to lend them support. The rumor is that relatives think they're getting their just desserts for driving me away. I've heard whispers that they've resorted to foraging for wild plants and fetching water from public parks. But since Victoria's last call, I haven't spoken to or seen them, so I can't confirm their situation. Honestly, I'm not concerned about how they're doing, and I've lost interest in their lives. Unless Elias secures a better job, their prospects look bleak. As for me, life has been joyful and liberating post-divorce. I've embraced being single and only recently informed my parents about the sale of the house and my marital status during a visit to apologize and update them. They weren't shocked by the divorce. They almost expected it and were just relieved I was financially secure enough to handle life on my own terms. They've even expressed that they wouldn't mind if I remained single. However, a man from work has been showing interest in me. He's been subtle about it, but I'm aware of his intentions despite not looking to date anyone just yet. He knows about my past with Elias and yet seems genuinely interested, which makes me think about the future. Although I had almost sworn off marriage, the idea of potentially starting a family with someone who truly cares for me is tempting. I wish I had left Elias sooner, but dwelling on lost time isn't productive. Moving forward, I'm focused on making decisions that contribute to my happiness. I used to believe that dedicating myself to my spouse and his family was the key to a happy life, but I was mistaken. It took a while, but that phase of my life taught me invaluable lessons. Now, I'm committed to putting myself first and pursuing what truly makes me happy. I'm confident that this approach will guide me to genuine contentment.